Welcome back to Elm Elaborates. This is episode 6, Building the Team. As always, Ryan Bono is here with me, and we are going to talk about how we built this fantastic team that we have at Elm Builders. I'm super excited to talk about it because it deals with me personally, because I'm part of the team.
That's right. You are part of the team. So building the team. So this team started with Eric and Levi, a father and son group. They hired Drake Massa, Josh Blackham. That was the original team.
Yeah.
Quite a small team, and we probably now are 4 or 5 times the size of that with various different companies and departments.
Yeah.
So we have 3 or 4 different companies, depends on how you want to look at it. 17 employees under this roof and various others under other roofs and other job sites, actually. So, this is very different than where they started, and I'm just super happy to be part of the team.
Yeah. So, but Elm itself, right? Elm, we are under these multiple roofs that the Hemingways have made. So Elm has kind of taken on its own life and its own life force, and we are now a bona fide team. And Ryan Bono is the top of the spear there as the director of construction. Who else do we have on this team, Ryan?
Yeah, so we have 2 site supers that are traveling for the commercial storage projects, and we have a 3rd site super that's a local site super for our project actually right across the street. We're very lucky to have that project so close. As far as project managers, I'm 50-50 director of construction, also a project manager, wearing 2 hats. And Cameron Pleasant is our other project manager. We are in a transition phase where I'm starting to work out of the project management, and Cameron's starting to work into the project management of every single project that we have. Yep. So I'm sure you're very bored and not much stuff for you to do.
Nothing at all.
And we have Kyle, who is part of our finance team for Elm Builders. He works on the bank draws and also insurance and all that kind of stuff that we need to run a business.
Yeah, I mean, I kind of want to dive a little bit deeper because at first it was just Levi and John, right? So John's the site super. Levi's kind of running all the projects. He's not too many projects at the time, but I mean, there's still, you got that supervision overhead. Yeah. And then they bring on you. You were the next hire as like they progressed to this Elm kind of being the beast that it is today, or?
Yeah, so actually Levi and Eric were flying out to Salt Lake City to go to a conference.
Yeah.
And Levi had been in contact about me potentially jumping on the Elm Builders team. And so in that particular moment when Levi was in Salt Lake City, it was really just John Serva running Elm Builders. It was
one-man show.
One-man show. Poor John. Shout out to John. I mean, he's been part of the team for 3 or 4 years now. So he's been other than Eric and Levi, he's been the longest on the Elm Builders side. Yeah. And on a lot of times, a lot of weight rested on John's shoulders. So shout out to John. Solid site super. Best of best. But in the moment, Levi kind of knew that, if he was going to do these things for Nomad Capital and really jump on and wear that hat as far as the capital raiser and, all of the FaceTime that he has to do with all of the clients and raising money and all that kind of stuff that goes along with being Nomad Capital, that he would need some help on the construction side. So in that moment when he landed, I actually texted him and he was like, I have to move forward and hire somebody to fill the seat because poor John's out there doing it alone. So Levi hired me. I joined the team about a year and a half ago. Almost immediately, I realized that what we needed to do is track a whole bunch of things and budgets and schedules and all that kind of stuff. And I looked around for somebody I could steal from the Nomad team, and that was Kyle. And I kind of started showing some things I was doing, and then I asked Levi, I said, can I take Kyle full time? I really enjoyed working with Kyle. Kyle's super smart and a younger guy and just ambitious. So we actually stole Kyle from Nomad and brought him to Elm. He literally didn't move his desk. He stayed exactly where he was, but just more involved with me. Then we hired Jordan, who's our local site super because we had a local project pop up. Then we hired Cameron Pleasant very shortly after. All these hires are within like a year of one another. We hired Cameron, which kind of freed me up a bit, which was really nice for me because trying to be director of construction, I'm trying to look at budgets and schedules on a more global level and just improve on them instead of in the day-to-day of like how to save $25 on a bolt, I needed somebody to pay attention to that, which was great, was to have you do that. But then I wanted to build the relationships with subcontractors to really start getting the bigger numbers dialed in, and put together spreadsheets of what we paid on every project for every line item and try to get really good at estimating our budgets and stuff. So that was really great to hire you on. And then we hired a rock star superintendent, Dave Magnuson, and we've got a lot of good feedback as far as like everybody knows Dave.
Dave has been in the storage industry for a while.
Yes, 20 plus years.
Yeah.
So people have even said to us like, "How did you get Dave on your team?" And it was just a conversation at a bar that Clint Harris's brother had with Dave, and then I ended up getting a picture of a crumpled up business card, and I was like, "Should I even call this guy?" Man, am I glad I did, because Dave is a super solid superintendent, and him and John Serva work very well together. They both travel a lot, and I think they're a dynamite team.
Yeah. So as you got into the Elm seat, you just realized, okay, because Elm was scaling at the time, just scaling so fast, like it's like a rocket ship. It's taking off. You're like, oh, I need help. I need Kyle. Boom, get Kyle. We got a local project, got Jordan, and then picked me up, and then we got another super, and then like we've just been growing since, and like.
Yeah, for how much business Elm Builders does, when I joined the team, it was a skeleton crew, and I was hired, and then Kyle was hired, so then Elm Builders grew by 150%. And it was just like, okay, like if we're tracking all these things and we're improving, like we're making more money, we're saving more money, we had the resources to hire more team, and so very quickly when we started, tracking all our budgets and doing all the right things, we were able to quickly get the resource to hire more people. Smart. It actually happened very quickly. Yeah. We got the budgets on track within 6 to 7 months.
Yeah, last 3 projects.
Yeah, last 3 projects we've hit. We've come under budget on all 3 projects.
Yeah, that's been great. So our site supers, which are pretty much our backbone because they're our eyes and ears, they're the boots on the ground. These guys, I mean, they save us so much time. Yeah. But they also, these guys are experienced.
Yes.
They go out there. Dave, he's been in the storage industry for over 20 years. John just has over 30 years of commercial experience, and he is he's our go-to guy.
Yeah, he's the who holds the knowledge.
Yes.
Yeah.
So I know the roles, of course, but let's elaborate a little bit on what they do on the day-to-day, because we're really building this team out, and we're really getting our process together, and we have a vision of that future and what we want our site supers to do and what we want the PM to look like and all these different positions. So in your director seat, in your elevation 10,000 feet high looking down, like what are these site supers doing?
Yeah, for us to do our job, we need the site supers 100%. We couldn't do what we do without having them there, because we're here in Wilmington at the office, and we're reviewing these things like budgets and schedule, all that kind of stuff. But physical, actual work needs to take place as well. I mean, without that, we have nothing. So day to day, John Serva and David Magnuson show up to the job site. They meet with the subcontractors. Typically, Cameron and I would have written the scope of work, the contract, got all their insurance. So the day they show up, they're ready to go. But they still need to have somebody on site to show them the plans. Yeah. The approved plans by the city, the town, whoever. And they need to review it, look at existing conditions, come up with a game plan, order materials. All that kind of stuff needs to be coordinated. And John Serva and David, they do all this kind of stuff. So literally from the moment they open the doors, I've seen it, like all the subcontractors come up to them and say, hey, do you have 5 minutes? I want to go show you this, or there's a post in my way, or, this drywall's not in good enough condition to paint, this or that, the floor's buckling, whatever it is. So it's about actually physically getting the work done. There's so many small details. I mean, these buildings are very old and they're very large,
very old.
So every time you go into a room, there's several items that need to be addressed before people can even start their work. So it's all about that. It's sequencing as well. Yeah. So you need to have, all of the overheads done and inspected before you can have storage materials. So they're communicating with all the subcontractors of what exactly they have to get done and what portions of the building they have to get it done by what time frame, so that the next person that has to do their work is ready to go.
Yeah, I just thought of an interesting analogy. Like, I would say they are like the conductor in an orchestra.
Yeah.
Right? Like, I am the stagehand. I've got all the instruments laid out. I got the chairs there. I've got the whatever the sheets are that have the music sheets.
Yeah.
You know, I got everything laid out, and they're there. They are just swinging their arms and keeping the flow going. That's I mean, that's what they're doing.
Yes.
They just were making sure this thing is going smoothly and flowing. I'm just in the background, like, if you mess up on a string, I got you.
Yeah.
You know?
So exactly. So we got the musicians to the event, right? And then they're coordinating it. And then if a string pops on a violin, right?
I got the backup.
Yes.
I got the backup violin.
Yes.
It's a great analogy, Batman. I just want to point that out.
I like it. It makes sense to me.
So with all these different because all these guys have different personalities. Kyle is super smart, very analytical, just like in the numbers. Same with you. You are a very numbers guy. Boom, boom, boom. You know what you need. I'm a driver, right? I'm just like, tell me what to do and I'll do it. Then you have John and Dave and Jordan that have their own personalities. Yeah. So like when we're thinking of building this team, how important is the dynamics of the team to come together? Like, what are we looking for when we're building this team?
Yeah, so we go by something called traction, and a subdivision of traction is called right person, right seat.
That's it.
So, you know, everybody has things they're great at, and then things they're good at, and things that they don't like. So, you know, usually they're not the best at that. You know, if you don't like or love something, you're just never going to really get there. So we actually got personality tests done on a lot of us, and we kind of fit people into the spots where we think they're going to do best. And, you know, usually it takes some time to kind of figure that out. But if you do the analytical personnel test up front, you could kind of figure a lot of that stuff out.
Yeah. Because all these different roles, you know, especially being a site super, you got to be a little bit more verbal.
Yeah.
You know, you got to be out there. You got to be able to communicate to people, you know, in a great tone, but, you know, obviously understand the whole project as a whole. And then if you're a numbers monkey like Kyle, you got to be, hey, every cent counts. Yeah. Hey, what's going on with those taxes? I don't think so. Not in this house.
Yeah.
Not with that not with that 589 CI. I don't think so. No. Yeah. So, man, that's a great team. Yeah. That's a great team. I'm happy to be a part of it. It's very challenging. I'll say that.
This team is young and scrappy, and we still have room to improve. Like, don't get me wrong, but how much we've changed in the last year is substantial. Like the amount of people we've added, the amount of processes we have added, and just the things we are doing is just, you know, Cameron's laughing because it's so hard just to add one new process.
Yeah.
It sounds easy, but when we add a new process, we document it and we trial test it, and then we come back and we have specific meetings about how to improve that. And we actually have our annual meeting coming up, and we're rolling out 2 more. So it's all about improving communication and efficiency and making sure everyone on the team is happy.
And that's another dynamic of the team, is that everyone is, you know, interested and everyone has skin in the game to improve the processes that they're actively working. Like our site supers, hey, they want something improved. We look at it, we change our processes if need be. Same thing here in the office. Like, hey, this isn't working right. Let's figure out a way to make this flow a little bit faster. Because ultimately, scaling, right? Yeah. So everything that we look at is like, is this scalable? Can we make this grow more? Because Elm is going to be a powerhouse, and we're just going to keep growing. So we want to make sure, if we hire on, how can we scale that, you know, to make it as big as we want it to be?
Exactly. Everyone here on this team has a voice. You know, whoever's at the top, like, they do not have authority to shut down anyone's voice or opinions, or like the main thing is that everyone has the free will to speak up about something along a chain. If they don't like it, or it's causing them double work, it's not efficient, it's just not the right process, we always encourage people to speak up and kind of reevaluate something. Obviously, we all have to come to an agreement, because, you know, some things just have to be a certain way, but we want to make sure that it's efficient and everybody is able to accomplish their task. We don't like the red tape.
Yeah.
I come from a very large commercial background, And the hardest thing to deal with is red tape. When you're trying to get your job done, and there's a bunch of red tape of preventing you from doing it, there's nothing that crushes your soul more than wanting to get the job done and literally not being able to. There's nothing like that, and we are never going to set up an environment where people are happy to come to work and then literally can't because there's so much red tape. We just won't operate that way.
Yeah, and I mean, I would say that's a big win for us. Just dealing with those challenges and growing each and every week almost with these level 10 meetings that we have where we talk about some of our big issues and we just change them on the spot almost. We're like, hey, let's figure out a way to make this work.
Correct. Building the team doesn't happen by accident. No. We are actively looking for great people always, and we're always having meetings about how we can improve the team and the processes. Yeah. It doesn't just if you don't pay attention to something like this, you won't build the culture, you won't build the great team. It's probably one of the top things we do and pay attention to.
Yeah, absolutely. With us always trying to improve our processes, teamwork and communication is key. We have to always be communicating with each other. Teamwork has to be there. Just because the ebbs and flows of everything, right? Yeah. Like if something's not working on the job site, I need to know from the site supers what's not working and what needs to be corrected. Just like with us in the office, we're not there on the job site every day.
Correct.
We cannot be. We're there once or twice a month. But I need communication on what's going on because my contracts rely heavily on, hey, I need to know what day to day. I need to know what contract to release, when we need to go. I need to know what's going into the budget. Have we made any promises to people that I don't know about? So that's just where communication is key. And daily logs, we do daily logs.
Right.
Which the progress of what's going on in the project, typically what vendors are there on site, what work is going to be done. It shows the weather, which we like because if you do any roofs, it's very important to always check the
weather.
Try
it in at the end of the day.
And that's it. Or any type of concrete or anything like that. But I mean, day logs, and that's where, we sit down in the morning and we try to look at the daily logs from yesterday or what's going to happen today and figure out, hey, what's our game plan moving forward? And then also just having our weekly meetings with the team. Like, hey, if you're running that job site, John or Dave, whatever, we're having a weekly meeting about that project. Hey, what are the pinch points? What's hindering us right now? Let's take a look 3 weeks forward. What contracts do we need? What vendors do we need to start looking for? Hey, what moves do we need to make? We're playing chess here. So what moves do we need to make to put us in a good good spot for checkmate?
Exactly. Between us, the project managers, and them, the site supers, we're on the same team, but we're tracking two different things. They're tracking progress and getting subcontractors on site. We're tracking schedules and budgets, right? So when we see a pinch point on our part, we need to communicate it to them like, hey, we really need to get the overheads done. The fire sprinkler has to be complete. That's the next thing on our schedule. How many of the sprinkler contractors were out on site, and do we have bids and all that kind of stuff? It's like we're looking at that pinch point as far as like schedule. Obviously, when the numbers come in, we're looking at the budget and see what we have allocated. But they're looking at a bunch of different things as far as what their metrics are. They're looking at they still track the schedule, but they're focused more on getting them on site.
Yeah.
And what portion of the building they could be working on.
Yeah, like, hey, I won't be here Tuesday. I'll be there Thursday or Friday. So, like, how much does that affect the schedule?
Right.
Because sometimes we work backwards. We're like, okay, storage material is going to be this date. Boom, what do we need to have done before that date? And that's how we kind of come up with our overall rough schedule. It's like, okay, if we do a deposit here, then we can get our storage supplied here. Like, let's start working backwards from there and figure out how this schedule is going to come together.
Right. But even when we do all that and then we set it in stone, somebody needs to actually call them and say, hey, we're ready for you to show up on the job site. Cameron and I do not do that. We rely on our site supers to do that. Jordan, Dave, and John. Yeah,
because they're the eyes and ears. They know what's going on. Like, oh, yeah, you can't come today because this X, Y, and Z is going on.
Yeah.
You're going to have to push it a week or whatever. Yeah. And then that communication, all that is just bringing that back up during our weekly talks. Like, hey, we had to move this, we had to slide it a day or two, and then we all sit down together. Hey, what does that do to our overall schedule? Like, where does that put us? Does that put us behind? Where can we make up time? That's always a fun conversation.
We have that conversation a lot.
Where can we make up time?
Yeah,
we got our foot to the pedal. We're going 60. How do we go 70?
Exactly.
How do we get to the destination a little bit faster? I don't know if you've ever checked. When you Google somewhere for a destination. And you're like, oh, it's going to take me 2 hours and 3 minutes. Like, nah, I'm going to shave that 3 minutes off.
Exactly.
I'm going to shave that 3 minutes off, guaranteed.
It's important. It's important to
absolutely.
us. Yeah, we have a portion in our schedule where we start installing the hallway storage, the hallways and doors.
Yeah.
And at that point, based on where the loan is, the loan amount per, our interest on the loan and all that kind of stuff, we're the general contractor, so it actually doesn't affect us, but it affects Nomad heavily.
Yeah.
But that's something that we track because our sister company, Nomad, it's super important to them.
Absolutely.
That's kind of nice about having it all under one roof. But we know that the moment that we order the storage hallways and doors, we need to sprint to the finish.
Yeah.
So that's what's good about, having the site supers do the day-to-day stuff, and we're looking ahead because soon as that point hits, we have to have everything planned out. It's got to be seamless.
Yeah,
It's got to be fast.
And it's got to be on budget.
And it's got to look good.
and it's got to look good. I mean, there's so many. Yeah, it's so much, but it's fun. So yeah, there's just some of the. I would say that's a little bit of a challenge, right?
Yeah, that's a challenge, and I would say that the conversions themselves,
always a challenge.
There's so many things. Every time you turn a corner, it's like, oh, what are we going to do about that pipe sticking out of the wall?
Yeah.
Got to get the pipe removed. That's a demo crew. Got to get the mason to break it in. Like, there's so many things in the conversions that the communication needs to be, like, constant. Our site supers need to be communicating these things to us so we can get bids to go have subcontractors go out perform the work. That's why we also do our walks, and we make punch lists that are 100 items long, and we can do that 3 or 4 times throughout a project. And that is a key, milestone so that the site supers and us in the office, we can communicate off the same list. Like, we have expectations set. This is what needs to get done by this date, and here are the people who are going to accomplish that.
Yeah. I would say another challenge is outside contractors or outside utility, contractors. That is the hardest thing, especially, you're trying to get power, you're trying to get water. Like, those guys, they kind of beat to their own drum, especially some of these big municipalities and power at
Duke Energy.
It's like they're not going to come rush to your aid. They're just like, yeah, we'll get to it when we get to it.
Especially when there's 3 major storms in the last 3 months.
Absolutely. And we definitely gave them hey, we gave you grace. We understand that. We just want to know, are we on the radar? Hey, we do want to get this demoed
scheduled at some point this year or even early next year.
This is when we're looking at having that done.
Yeah.
How are you feeling about it?
Yeah.
So I would say that's another, because just trying to get a hold of someone to take it serious. Like right now, no knock on AT&T, but I've been calling AT&T forever, and they have not helped me.
Yeah.
So if you're listening, help me.
Help
me, please. Get your line out of there.
Yeah, and that's also where the site supers come into play. Like, I've called somebody from Duke, at least probably 15, 16 times. Yeah. And luckily yesterday, John texted me at 6 o'clock at night and said, hey, I got in touch with that guy. So, the face-to-face stuff where John and this person from Duke, they've actually walked the job site a few times, and I think there's just, you can't beat the face-to-face time. Like, they've built more of a relationship than I could do because I'm 4 hours away. So that's what's so nice about having somebody on site to represent us.
Yeah. And now I would say other challenges are just change orders. We don't like change orders. No one does, right? You come to a set price, and now guess what? That's going to cost you a little bit more. The challenge for me is that obviously the budget, making sure okay, do we have it in the budget to make this change? And is that change necessary? You're bringing me a change order that I didn't agree upon, right? I want to make sure we are understanding that was direly needed to keep the project going or to give me the finished product that I'm looking for.
Right.
But then we really dive into our scope and okay, what did we miss there? What do we need to change on our end to make sure that this doesn't happen again in the future?
Absolutely, and you don't want to hold them up. We don't want to hold anybody up. If it is necessary, we want to make a quick decision and get it going. But sometimes some people, subcontractors, right, not that they have ulterior motives, but, they're there and they see something that they can make additional profit on, and they think it would look better or something, and they might not know what we have in mind for, that wall. Like, if we're going to put liner panels, they might want to wire brush it and paint it and all that stuff. Well, if we have liner panels there, it doesn't really matter because
you can't see it.
Yeah, exactly. So it's just about aligning our goals and their goals. And you know, a lot of these change orders, they send them in and they need to be approved right there because they're on site, and a lot of times we have to pump the brakes and evaluate them and see if they're really necessary. Sometimes we have to go back to engineers and be like, do we really need to add an extra sub panel and all this kind of stuff. So the communication between our design professionals, us in the office, the site superintendents, and the subcontractors, those 4 parties, I mean, it's crucial, but it's kind of like a game of telephone that you try to mitigate. You don't want too many cooks in the kitchen, but you need the professionals there, and we have to make an educated decision quickly.
Yeah, without hindering the schedule at all.
Yeah.
You know, that's where, you know, just everyone coming together in these weekly meetings to try to figure out, like, okay, if we're on hold in this section, what can we do to keep the progress going, to keep this train chugging along down the tracks?
Yeah, that's kind of why it's somewhat nicer to have larger buildings.
Yeah.
You know, the larger the building, the more area we can work in. And also, it kind of takes just as much effort to permit a small building as it does a big building.
Yes, it
so
does.
and the more volume you have, the better prices you can get on your equipment. So sometimes, you know, sometimes it's easy. I don't want to say easier, but it's just the juice is worth the squeeze on the larger buildings.
I would agree. Out of all the projects that you've done so far, which one has been your favorite? Which one have you been most excited to take on?
Gastonia was a great one.
I knew you were going to say Gastonia.
There were so many challenges, you know, and it was
if
like,
anyone says Gastonia in the office to Ryan, he just smiles like,
yeah, that was the first one start to finish that I was involved in that got CO.
Yeah.
And so that one holds a near and dear place in my heart, but there were so many challenges, and that building was so cool that I have to say Gastonia. I went up there probably 14 times throughout the duration of construction. It was a really great project. A lot of, you know, I couldn't have done it without the team. I met a lot of great subcontractors there in Gastonia that we used on other projects, especially like the metal fabricator, and there's many more, but that one just comes to mind that we met them on a whim out there in Gastonia, and they came through for us on Lexington. So I feel like Gastonia, we just hit so much momentum, and there's so much that has happened since that project, and because of that project, that one's gonna be my favorite.
Yeah.
If I asked you the same question, which one would you say?
Oh, I'm gonna say Kernersville.
Okay.
Like Kernersville, I mean, obviously, I think for the same reasons, right? Like, we have started Kernersville. I've been part of Kernersville from the start. I think that was like one of my very first tasks when I got here was, hey, count how many LVLs is in this building, which I had no idea what it was about. And it's always exciting to go on these site visits and you just see the progress. You're like, holy smokes. And like the daily logs, you're like, man, this building is coming together, and it's coming together quick, and I'm loving it. So I would say Kernersville. Lexington, I really enjoyed. It was a nice little softball walk up.
Was it too easy for you?
I wouldn't say it was too easy. No, I mean, I had Dave, so thank goodness I had Dave.
Yeah.
Like, Dave is a rock star. He is the king of communication. Like, Dave will communicate everything.
Yeah.
You know, he'll tell you what you had for lunch that day. I mean, I love Dave. So it was really nice to have, like, that whole dynamic was really cool to see. But, like, you're right, like, I like the bigger projects, right?
Yeah.
Like Lexington was already really nice.
Yeah.
Like, it was already going to be a very nice conversion. It was like, oh, this is really nice.
The hardest part was the elevator. I mean, everything else was so just straightforward.
But Kernersville, at the beginning, it's just so
much.
Like, I remember one of my very first sites visits, I was there, and it was just pouring inside. It was just so much water pouring. And it's just like, what did we buy here?
Yeah. And I'm very grateful we have John Serva on that site, because he always says, like, how do you eat an elephant? One bite at a time. So that project is that exact thing. There are so many monsters to tackle on that job site that it's like, John's got the knowledge and he doesn't get overwhelmed. That project could overwhelm basically anybody.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And the crazy thing is we have an active tenant in there right now, too.
Yeah.
We're working around an active tenant.
We have all the challenges on that.
Yeah.
On that. We have old transformers that are massive. We had a roof that was leaking literally everywhere. You couldn't even count the amount of roof leaks on that project.
Yeah.
We have a tenant. We have 3 levels. Some of it's below grade.
Major structural repair.
Major structural.
Like just the LVLs that were needed to meet our pounds per square foot. Like that was crazy.
We are subject to a full exterior renovation as well.
Yeah, civil plans.
Plans.
Gosh.
Fire hydrants.
Oh, gosh.
Sidewalks. Fences. Gates.
Yeah.
Parking lot. Planters. Vegetation.
Vegetation. How many trees are going in there? 207.
Yeah, with the shrubs and the trees and large trees, small trees. Yeah, it's over 200. I think it's like 230 something.
Yeah, it's crazy how Kernersville is and like what it's going to look like as a finished product. It's really cool.
Yeah.
So I would say that is going to be, once that thing is done and we get CO for that, we are popping bottles. We are celebrating so hard.
That is gonna be a great day.
Yeah.
I remember doing a site walk. We did a site walk, and then we did a second site walk. Usually we do a couple at the beginning of the project. And after the second site walk, everybody's face looked confused. We were all confused. And we were just like, man, I don't remember it being this rough. And like, we're looking at the numbers, and all of it makes sense. We went over the budget, and we were all just like, and then we were like, you know what? This is what we do. Like this is, everybody's there's nothing that's too hard. Yeah. Like, the structural, it was like a little bit complicated, but relatively, Cistern joist was not that big of a deal. No. But we just felt like it was overwhelming, but we just had to take a step back and be like, this is all absolutely possible. It's all figure outable. Yeah. And the third site walk, we were like, you know what? We're good. Like we had the structural professionals, the engineers, all those people come out, and everybody came up with a game plan. And we're like, you know what? We're going to figure this out. Yeah. We don't have 100% figured out, but we have all the major things nailed down. We feel good.
Yeah, and that thing is moving. Yeah. It is moving right along. I mean, John has been amazing there. We told him to go full speed, and I can't keep up with him. Yeah. He is killing me here in the office. I am just like, contract. What is going on?
Yeah, we had that meeting of like, okay, permitting took 6 months. It should have only taken 2. Then we had that sit-down meeting of like, okay, what all do we have to get lined up within the next 3 weeks to really hit that deadline that we set, that aggressive deadline? And I knew we came up with a good plan, but we are doing great. Yeah. I hate to say it, but we are executing that game plan, and it feels great. Yeah. And that's all about building the team. Yeah. Couldn't have done it without the team.
That's right. It's teamwork.
It is teamwork.
Makes the dream work.
All
right, well, that is another episode for Elm Elaborates. I hope you liked what you're listening to. If you have questions or comments, please leave them at the link below. Subscribe, hit the thumbs up, and we will see you next time on Elm Elaborates.